Hi everyone. This is the last of our introductory prototype slideshows. Just a quick walkthrough of mankind's attempts to communicate in the thousands of years before civilization was able to capture electricity. Not every slide here has commentary. You are not required to comment on this particular slideshow, but please let me know if you receive it, including the audio. I'll see you again on slide 6. Even pre-literate societies needed communication to keep their myths alive. These photos show the legendary blind Greek poet Homer, who authored the epic Iliad and the Odyssey. These poems were delivered orally. There are no contemporaneous texts. The top right picture represents a battle scene from the Trojan War. The middle, the infamous wooden horse being wheeled into the walled city of Troy. And on the bottom, Odysseus, returning home after the 10-year war, being lashed to the mast of his boat to resist the irresistible call of the sirens. The Romans were ingenious engineers. To communicate through their empire, they built a series of lighthouses and built fires on the top to send smoke signals from tower to tower. On a good day, they could send a message 600 miles, but only along the coastline. The next major revolution was mass-produced printing, originating with Johann Gutenberg's printing press. Suddenly, the oral tradition and hand printing were dying arts. Now, messages were available to the masses. The second photo is from the first British newspaper 200 years after Gutenberg. In the third picture, you know that Paul Revere was a patriot, and maybe you know he was a silversmith, but he was also an engraver. His propagandistic engraving of the Boston Massacre was a factor in inflaming the colonies in the years before the Revolution. Benjamin Franklin's experiments with electricity in the 1750s opened the door to the modern electricity-delivered communications era of today. In the three photos on the right, Samuel Morse invented the telegraph in the 1840s. Now messages could travel at the speed of electricity, the speed of light. Here is a photo of the original telegraph key and of the streets of New York City clogged with telephone wires in the 1880s. Even so, communications were by wire only. You had to be connected. In the Civil War, engineers were able to roll out miles of telegraph wire to connect the battlefield with headquarters and to the Capitol in Washington, D.C. Almost as quickly, Confederate operators snuck behind enemy lines, deleting the original messages and sending false reports back to Union headquarters. The first hackers. In 1876, Alexander Graham Bell invented the telephone, but the problem remained. You had to be physically connected by wire to communicate. It took many years before inventors, most notably Marconi, were able to send messages from point A to point B without wires. Eventually, signals could be sent from point A to anyone within range of the signal, the first true broadcasting. Nevertheless, wireless was still considered a toy, a novelty, a scientific plaything, until the Titanic disaster of 1912, where 1,600 people died, two-thirds of all the passengers, because the Titanic's calls for distress went unheard. All of the ships in the nearby ocean had turned off their wireless receivers for the night at the time the Titanic hit the iceberg at 11:15 on a Sunday in the mid-Atlantic Ocean. From that day on, electric communications were seen as a force for good, but often used as a force for evil. In our next episode, we will open the course officially with a look at the earliest use of communications for state control, this time in communist Russia. Stay tuned.